Donald Trump making more key appointments today, but he also backtracked on a whole lot of campaign promises. We're going to take a look at the latest from the Trump transition. Then our panel of attorneys joins us to take a look at potential conflicts of interest between Trump's businesses and his new job as leader of the free world. Also, former top Cuomo aide Joe Percoco, he has just been indicted for corruption. What does that mean for the New York governor? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks a lot for joining us this Wednesday night. Well, Donald Trump, he has chosen a couple more cabinet-level positions today. President-elect, he's picked South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley to be ambassador to the UN. That even though she has little to no foreign policy experience. And she also very clearly did not support one Donald Trump during the campaign. He's also chosen prominent GOP fundraiser Betsy DeVos for Secretary of Education. DeVos is the founder of a nonprofit group that advocates for school choice and charter schools. She is also against Common Core. And don't forget about this guy. Mitt Romney appears to be the front runner as we speak to be Secretary of State. But Rudy Giuliani's still in the running, and he's got the backing of at least some of the hardliners, including Newt Gingrich. Now, it's only been a couple of weeks, but Trump has already walked back a lot of things that he campaigned on. Remember this one? He told the Times yesterday he will not prosecute Hillary Clinton because he doesn't want to hurt the Clintons.
If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception. There has never been anything like it, and we're going to have a special prosecutor.
Well, that was then and this is now. And it's just the start of it. Remember the border wall? How could you not? At every rally, he said he'd build it, and don't forget, Mexico would pick up the tab. This is what he just said, though, on 60 Minutes.
Are you really going to build a wall?
Yes.
They're talking about a fence in the Republican Congress.
Sure.
Would you accept a fence?
For certain areas I would, but certain areas the wall is more appropriate.
And there's more here, a lot more. While campaigning, he said climate change a hoax. Well, now he says that could actually be a man-made connection to it. He's also opening to keep the U.S. in the Paris Climate Accord. Not exactly what we heard on the campaign trail. Then, of course, waterboarding. This is what he had to say about that procedure during the debate.
I would bring back waterboarding, and I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
Remember, he also said he'd go after the families of suspected terrorists, even killing them. Now, he's also softening on the position of waterboarding and everything else. All it took, apparently, was a short conversation with Defense Secretary candidate General James Mattis to get him to reconsider. He said, give me cigarettes and beer and I'll get him to talk. Now, all of a sudden, torture's off the table. And, of course, there's Obamacare. After meeting with President Obama in the video we're showing you, Trump says he's now open to keeping parts of the Affordable Care Act. On the campaign trail, he kept saying his biggest priority to repeal it and do so immediately. All right, let me bring in my friends here. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent. All right, and I'll start with you, Andrew, in terms of the names that have been appointed and the names that we're hearing. Notably, Nikki Haley. She was a never-Trumper. She went on to say a whole lot of things about why it'd be dangerous. She not only got behind Marco Rubio, but others. Mitt Romney called him a fraud, a fake, a scam artist. And while he hasn't been appointed, while we thought that this was just a nice photo op, it looks like there's more to it right now. What do you make of it?
Well, the Nikki Haley appointment is an interesting one. She doesn't have a whole lot of experience, but she does check off a few other cards that are necessities for him. She's a minority, she's a woman, and she's an anti-Trumper, so she appeals to the people within the Republican Party who were disaffected by Trump during the campaign.
But just as a frame of reference, Ambassador UN usually has foreign policy experience. I can't think of somebody that would completely come out of nowhere for this.
Yeah, but I'm sure he's going to say that as governor, she had lots of experience dealing with international governments and has some footing on foreign policy. Plus, she's the daughter of immigrants, so that may factor into his thinking as well. We really don't know. The education appointment is an interesting one. I mean, that's pretty much holding to Republican orthodoxy in terms of being in support of school choice and being in support of vouchers and being in favor of charter schools. So it seems like he's going with an establishment position there. The Mitt Romney thing, we'll see if he picks him.
But if he does, he's already ticking off a whole bunch of folks in his base saying, what are you doing? This guy was the anathema. I know right now he hasn't done it, but if he goes that route, or if he goes the Giuliani route, we're going to learn a lot about what he's thinking here. Does he pride loyalty above everything else? Does it rub him the wrong way that Giuliani campaigned for the job publicly? Also, he didn't, I mean, I've never seen a transition where somebody other than the president or the president's spokesperson announces who's getting the job. He basically, said, no, you know what, I'd keep an eye out here for Sessions. He'll get the gig as it relates to Attorney General. Usually that gets you kicked off altogether. I think we're going to learn a lot with who the Secretary of State is to tell us who's calling what shots in Trump land.
Richard, knowing Giuliani a little bit privately, he has to be stewing over the fact that his appointment in this administration has not been made public yet. Giuliani is someone that is quite used to being the dominant headline. And in fairness to Mr. Giuliani, he is one of the key players, as we all know at this table, who stood by Trump when there was no one else. The day after the tape, the
Access Hollywood.
The Access Hollywood.
But he's got no leverage right now. It's not like, what's he going to do? Indeed has no core. Basically, the only claim to fame that he had was when nobody else would go out on the Sunday talk shows that weekend, he was the only one that stood by Trump. But as we've seen, loyalty has its limits, just ask Chris Christie. Now, to his positions he's taking or not taking, some folks, the fact that he's not going after Hillary Clinton, I don't think he could have succeeded anyway with it, but that's not the point. He's ticking off some of his base, and he's giving a sign to others, which I'm not buying, that, hey, the campaign version of me and the real version of me, two totally different guys. I'm a really sober, calm-headed guy here. Just look at what I'm doing or what I'll do in my first 100 days. What gives?
What gives is, in fairness to Mr. Trump, I think, Richard, that we're looking at a culmination of politicians throughout the years that promise everything and never deliver. So the difference this time is Trump put on a show. It was a reality show. He told you what you wanted to hear with no intention of delivering on any of it. It makes him a total phony, a total hypocrite, but perhaps it's the American way.
Real quickly, you believe that torture, his complete 180 on a torture, it's not some mitigated thing. Do you think really he sat down the general told him, he goes, you know what, convinced me, good enough? Or do you think that this was some calculated position he never was really going to do?
I think it's likely that he took that position until the next person who got in his ear and talked to him about torture.
Amazing.
I
happen to think you're right, and that's amazing.
And we've seen this on a number of different, he meets with Obama, all of a sudden he loves parts of Obamacare, until who? Somebody else gets in his ear and tells him Obamacare has to go. I'm going to build on he's an inveterate liar. Donald Trump. He has shown himself to be an inveterate liar. He lied his way through the campaign trail. He has lied his way through his business career. That has been the way his MO. And I'm sorry.
Or does he have a
I'm sorry to break us off the.
No. Or is it a fruit fly attention span, which is the next person that talks to him?
He has a need to please the people in the room that he's talking to and to be loved by the people in the room that he's talking to. That came up. Joe Nocera wrote an article in the Times today about that interview that he gave to the New York Times yesterday.
Well, let's speak about that. In fact, dealing with the media, because for the most part, the one constant group that he hasn't got along with is the media here. And how will the media handle the Donald? So far, things have been far from smooth. We told you yesterday about the meeting that Trump had with TV executives and anchors. They all come up to the Trump Tower, and he laid into them, ripped them a new one. So the question is how the president-elect basically not only just got him there and then told him they're all liars, untrustworthy, and everything else. Well, one on-air personality was in the room. He said the following, and he obviously wouldn't give his name here, but he made it pretty clear. He spoke for not just himself. He said, I'm emotionally effing pissed. How can this not influence coverage? I'm being totally honest with you. I thought, okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. After the meeting today, though, and I'm being human with you here, I think, F them. I really am offended. This was unprecedented. This was outrageous. Now, this is what Christine Amanpour from CNN had to say about both Trump and media and the role they have in covering this president. Take a listen.
I had actually hoped that once president-elect, all that would change. And I still hope that, and I am confident that is going to come. But I was chilled when the first tweet after the election was about, quote, professional protesters incited by the media.
And she went on to say, Dom, that that's how these things start here in banana republics, etc. First get people to go after that the media is the enemy, then you clamp down on the media, then you control the media, and you go where else. We're not there. This is the United States 2016, but nonetheless.
That is his intention, though. Let me be very clear about it.
He'd love that. Now, easier said than done, and I don't think he could ever do that. However, how tender and sensitive he is. If people read carefully his complaints with that people weren't nice to him. He kept saying that, and usually, okay, but he kept saying that. You were mean to me. You told terrible lies, even if it was factually true. I saw one guy who covered him for the entire campaign, and he got the call after covering one of the events and just posted within minutes. He said a couple hundred people were here, and Trump said there was 3,000 people at the event. The guy went to the fire marshals and did the right math, but Trump said, "You're lying about my numbers. You're trying to make me look bad." It's who he is. He's got the thinnest skin going, and he thinks the media's out to get him. And certainly they've taken their shots, I believe warranted, but nonetheless, how do you think this plays out, given what happened yesterday at Trump Tower, and then what happened today, or after that with the Times, which basically was, you know, I'm not going to meet with you, and then all of a sudden, fine, I will meet with you, and the Times called his bluff, and the Times got the scoops. How do you think the media should handle him? And also, how do you think he's going to react at the end of the day?
One,
he needs the attention, doesn't he?
Trump is the type of person, Richard, that he notices everything in the room. He will act like he doesn't, almost like Bill Clinton. Notices everything, everything. Notices people that their body language, it says, I don't like you or whatever, notices everything. How this should go is different from what may actually happen. The way it should go is the media should absolutely ignore every criticism that the president-elect has, unless it's valid of unfair coverage, and just cover him straight up. How it's going to go, he's going to beat the media down into almost submission, which is going to last for maybe 6 months to a year, and then there's going to be a public outcry that the media is caving in to Trump, and then the media will cover him straight up.
In fact, there was a lot of social media taunts against other media saying, why don't you go to the Times building where you maybe can find a spine? I think, you know, what he said to Zucker at CNN and the rest in the room here where he personally went after him, you're picking the wrong enemies. We have to fill 24 hours a day, a lot of the media. And when he personally, and people have already given the media a lot of heat because they let him off the hook throughout the whole primary process, right? That I think he picked the wrong fight this time.
I think he's banking on two things. One is the thought that he can circumvent the media. He can release videos on his own. He can use Twitter. He can do interviews that are friendly to him. He doesn't need the mainstream media. He can paint them all as liars because when they invariably write stories that are critical of him, because the truth will be, I think, critical of him, he can say that it's just bias against him. And the second thing is...
who wins that fight?
I mean, who won the fight during the 2016 election? I think Trump's well-positioned to win this fight because he's just going to simply talk to his voters and say, you can't believe anything that's coming from these people.
But
and also,
the candidate and the elect, I think,
networks will also cave because they need access to the White House so that they can have their balanced coverage.
But the only one thing is, we all know, the only thing the media hates more than being insulted by the president is when the other media call you basically a fraud and a shill. If you're getting that from the other media, that you get the interview and you don't ask the right question, that's what bothers media more than anything. And I think that is the concern now, if I was Donald Trump, that if you overplay your hand and the media decides enough, you're not going to give us access, you're not going to do the pool here, there's lines that, again, they got to do 24 hours a day. They don't have to put them on.
He didn't cross so many of those lines throughout the entire campaign?
I think a candidate and elected are two different things, but as I say, time will tell. Guys, thank you so much. When we come back, Trump's companies conduct business with several countries. That much we know. President Trump, he'll be dealing with just about every world leader. But Trump says he can do both at the same time. The question is, does the law allow him to?